I have never recorded a video at night before, but it is winter in New England, so I don't get a say. Ding dong, ding dong. Who's that? My old pal? Seasonal affect disorder? Come on in, make yourself at home. You always do.
When you need some dough, you don't know where to go in this patriarchal capitalist hellscape. Well, here's the sitch, we're gonna help you, sis, because bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. Bitches get riches. And so can you.
It's finally time for me to talk about Anti-Goblin Mode. This is my secret holy grail technique for conquering executive dysfunction in my home, my work, and my life in general. I've never written about this before. It kind of seemed too personal and too silly to share with others, but I will admit that since I've discovered it, I have used it nearly every single day of my life, and the transformation has been permanent and incredible. And this month, our patrons demanded an article about becoming an organized person. So the time has come. One of the best pieces of general life advice that I have ever received on any topic is this: never ask a natural talent to be your teacher. If someone shot out of the womb composing piano sonatas, do not ask them to teach you piano. They literally don't understand the experience of not knowing all of the things that they know. This holds true in organization too. I find that most organizational systems were written by people with a natural talent for organization. You know, monsters who can keep a white rug clean. Their advice shouldn't be trusted. Instead, the best teachers are people who struggled and persevered in the face of total mediocrity. On this point, I am happy to attest that neither nature nor nurture set me up to be an organized person. I grew up the undiagnosed ADHD child of an undiagnosed ADHD parent who is also a hoarder. That means that I have earned my organized life valiantly on the battlefield. So how? How did I become an organized person? I am happy to tell you that it is not rigid or complicated or super philosophical or time-consuming. I developed a game to help me do it, and it's very simple, but it has really transformed my life for the better, and I share it today in the hopes that it might help you too. There are many nuances to being an organized person. It's strongly influenced by a lot of factors: your brain chemistry, your living arrangements, your general life stability, whatever behaviors were modeled to you in your formative years. Many people, like myself, have executive function disorders. If you're among them, you will find disorganization easier to fall into, and you will feel the sting of its indemnity more often. Paying the ADHD tax is a common phrase that captures all of the waste and the fines and the punishments and the scoldings and the setbacks that we endure because we goofed. In fact, this whole article today was inspired by a longtime Patreon donor with ADHD who wrote to us in real despair after being fired for making inattentive mistakes in the workplace. But neurotypical people absolutely get overwhelmed and disorganized too. We do not have a monopoly on this. In my observation, very few people just flawlessly cope with the staggering task of normal adulting. Our lives are just bursting at the seams with so many tasks and responsibilities. We own more stuff than ever before. We face more distractions than ever before. Our lives are full of an unprecedented number of commitments. And income inequality and wage stagnation have made the average person's finances so precarious that the consequences of missing something are higher than ever. I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was 32 years old, which means that I spent the first 3 decades of my life viewing my disorganization in the same way that most people do, as a personal failure. And ultimately, it functionally is, our world holds people accountable for their lapses, unless you're rich. And then you can make oopsies. Taxes are due when they're due. Bills are due when they're due. Grace is a rare commodity for everyone, and we are all under incredible pressure to stay unnaturally organized. I don't think that I've talked much on the blog about my mother's hoarding disorder. It's probably because it's just one of the most unpleasant topics for me to dwell on. It's enough to say that her disorganization was a wellspring of sadness within my family unit. It created a lot of dysfunctional crossed wires in my brain between organization and shame. When I was asked to clean as a child, what it really meant was panic hide as many things out of sight as you possibly can so that people don't find out how we really live. That was not tidying. That was hiding. And I hate hiding and feeling ashamed of myself, so I thought I hated cleaning and organizing too. Oh, this continued into adulthood. When I was a new adult, I panic cleaned whenever I knew someone was coming to my home. If someone dropped by unannounced and saw my messes, I felt really caught off guard and humiliated. I dreaded tasks that required diligence and follow-up. Because I didn't have the tools to improve in those areas, instead, I developed this robust system of lying and making excuses to cover my forgetfulness and inattentiveness. Although my experiences are unique, I don't think they're uncommon. A lot of people feel shame for their disorganization. Messiness has enormous symbolic power. Finally leaving that mindset behind felt intensely liberating for me. And I know from my own experience that change can happen. You just have to create the right conditions for it. What makes an organized person organized? Examples of answers that I reject would include they're more virtuous, they're more respectful of others, they work harder, they just want it more. No, I know far too many kind and loving and hardworking, ambitious people with organization struggles to believe that for a second. I have a theory that organized people are really good at answering one simple question. Where does this go? Where does this go? Where does this go? Organized people answer this question readily, whether you present them with physical objects or with information such as emails, texts, appointments, reminders, and requests. Sounds like an oversimplification, right? But it makes sense when you consider cognitive load theory. I said load. I'm putting this very, very simply, but our brains basically have a limit on how much information they can process at one time. New information lands in our working memories for evaluation. If it's deemed important, we're supposed to move it into storage in our long-term memories. If it's not important, we forget it.
So this is easier. Yeah, we can handle this, okay?
But when our working memories get overwhelmed, the system starts to break down. We make mistakes in our evaluations of important versus unimportant information. We forget stuff that we didn't intend to forget. We learn less effectively because we can't easily push that good stuff into the long-term storage. We actually lose the ability to think with fresh mindsets. So under stress, we fall back on what are called schema, which is just a fancy way of saying our most familiar ways of thinking. This leads to us making stereotypical lazy decisions. So, for example, think of a habitual people pleaser. Maybe they want to develop the skill of saying no, but if they're overwhelmed, they walk their brain's most familiar pathway and just say, sure, I'll do it, which makes them more overwhelmed.
Fine, you're doing splendidly. Speed it up a little!
I think the cognitive load theory does a lot to explain why organized people seem superpowered. Organized people aren't getting their batteries drained by distractions in the form of physical and informational clutter. If they know where everything goes, it means they also know where everything is. They don't waste a lot of time and energy running around looking for stuff. That leaves them with the mental capacity to evaluate priorities correctly and actually learn new information and maintain an open-minded perspective and make fewer mistakes. And yeah, clutter of any kind is extraordinarily distracting. This is the entire concept of Where's Waldo and I Spy books. The thing you want to find is hard to see if it's surrounded by things you don't want to find. I'm with the ape tribe in Princess Mononoke. Do we have to change ourselves? Can't we just eat the flesh of organized people to gain their powers? Alas, I have been informed that this may not work and is also legally frowned upon. Sadly, if you want to become organized, you have to become good at handling this question, where does this go? And there's really only two ways to accomplish this. Get good at answering the question and get good at avoiding the question. Ideally, you'll get good at both of them in time, but one may feel easier, so start wherever you can. I'm going to talk you through some strategies to strengthen both skills. Let's start with how to get good at answering this question. So first, let me say a little bit more about Goblin Mode. I define Goblin Mode as a temporary reactionary rejection of external expectations and future consequences. Goblin Mode is all about living in the present. You embrace this unrefined hedonism and you willfully choose to ignore what you should be doing. Goblins don't have to answer the question, where does this go? They drop that shit on the floor. Done right, it is animalistic and rebellious and relaxing. I love rejecting unwanted responsibilities and dropping all pretense of cleanliness and civility and thumbing my nose at social norms. It feels good. It's one of the many reasons that I worked so tirelessly toward the goal of retiring early. I hated putting on a mask and cosplaying as this effortlessly competent person who cares about her work, which 99 times out of 100, I absolutely did not. I wanted to build a life where I just didn't have to pretend anymore. But to get there, I needed to enable my future self. In order for her to bob out to her heart's content, she needed me to support her with complementary periods of future-oriented, productive accountability. My dopamine-starved brain loves games, so I developed a game that would put me into Anti-Goblin Mode. This game, no joke, has completely transformed my life for the better. So here I'm going to tell you the rules. Every day, put 50 things where they go. That is literally it. You start putting things away, and when you hit 50 things, you stop. If you feel good and you want to keep going, you can. While you're doing it, do something that feels diverting and rewarding, like playing music or a podcast, so that it's not pure drudgery. And do this every day, unless you want to have a Goblin Mode day, as I frequently do on the weekends. How you define a thing and how you define putting it away is up to you. And 50 is not a holy number. You will know the right number for yourself when the first 80% is easy and automatic and the last 20% requires more time and thought. But Kitty, you're probably saying, you promised me the stars with this technique, but it's lame. It's just cleaning my room with extra steps. To which I say, hush, my pretty pet. Let me explain the psychology of what you're doing and how it is transforming your brain. When I'm putting my 50 things away, I always start with the easiest stuff, which for me is dishes. Where does this big plate go? Well, it goes stacked on top of all of the other big plates. Where does this fork go? Literally with all the other forks, I'm not draining my batteries making decisions. This is automatic. I can usually knock out the first 20 to 25 things in under 5 minutes because they're just that simple. But if there's something in my house that does not have an obvious home, I might spend the same 5-minute interval aimlessly wandering around trying to decide where the hell it should go. For me, this used to happen all the time with sunglasses. Should they be in the car where bright light is most likely to bother me? Should they be in the bathroom with my other normal glasses and contacts? Should they be with like my other accessories like hats and gloves on the front porch? Should it be near my clothes? Next to my jewelry? In my purse? I never had an answer to where the fuck to put these sunglasses. In time, the exasperation of wandering around my house with sunglasses in my hand just got to me, and I finally picked a drawer in a side table in my dining room. Is a dining room the optimal place for sunglasses? No, but it doesn't matter. Now when I'm cleaning my house, I know where to put the sunglasses. Even better, if I need sunglasses, I know exactly where to find them, which means I'm getting back 3 kinds of energy. The energy I would have spent being distracted by their presence as clutter, the energy I would have spent fruitlessly looking for them when I needed them, and the energy I spent agonizing over how to clean them up. It sounds so basic, but this is how you begin to transform into an organized person. You're becoming someone who can easily answer the question, where does this go? Once I started playing this game with myself, I think that my attitude about cleaning started to shift basically immediately. I could take my time and sip coffee as I went, or I could sprint around racking up as many easy wins as I could on a busy day. It just always fit. And initially, the 50 items only made sort of a modest dent in my household's general messiness. But as the weeks went on, I started having to search further and deeper into the house to find new things to put away. Seeing a semi-full laundry basket, I thought, oh, okay, why not? Proactive laundry was not on my personal bingo card, but there's a first time for everything. These dreaded little piles of mending and unsorted tax forms just melted away like dirty snow in spring. In these 10 and 20-minute chunks every day, my life was shifting toward orderliness. All of this may sound like it wouldn't impact life outside of your home's tidiness, but I swear it does. When you get a feeling of satisfaction from Anti-Goblin Mode, you start to seek it out without even thinking about it. As you develop more of these easy automatic answers to the where does this go question, you free up more and more of your cognitive load to answer harder questions accurately. Even my mood just greatly improved, feeling proud of myself and my surroundings every day. The impact ripples surprisingly far outward. All of that said, avoiding responsibility for random shit is pretty cool too. So that's my favorite way to get better at answering the where does this go question. Now let's talk about all the ways in which you can avoid it.
I am running away from my responsibilities. Well, it feels good.
Avoidance is not generally a winning strategy. However, these strategies are about self-protection. If your executive function well tends to run dry, you need to deter random passersby from helping themselves to your brain water. There are many ways to avoid answering the where does this go question. I'm going to give you my top 5. Even if they don't work for you exactly as written, they will teach you how to see these kinds of opportunities to preserve yourself. Basically, don't drain your batteries on stuff that you don't care about. Save all of your best efforts for yourself and your loved ones. Avoidance strategy number 1. Own less stuff. When you assume custody of an object, you are accepting its utility, but also its responsibility. You've got to add it to your mental household inventory and find a home for it and retrieve it when you need it and put it away when you're done with it and maintain it and clean it. The more items you own, the more you're going to be asked the mentally taxing question, where does this go? You do not have to be a monkish minimalist about everything. I think it's smart to set a high standard of utility for all of the things that you own so that the trade-off for caring for them is worth it. Our consumption-driven economy will test your commitment to this practice every dang day. It has trained us to assume that the first and best solution to every problem is to buy something. I have noticed that people with ADHD in particular can get suckered into this way of thinking, especially in these three areas. Duplicate items create duplicate work. When you are constantly running out of clean plates, it's tempting to think, I'll buy a second set. But now when it's time to wash dishes, you have twice as many to clean, making that dreaded task even harder. You have not actually addressed this problem. Storage hurts as often as it helps. When you have a hard time keeping track of all of your belongings, it feels really great to put them into a box and put that box on a shelf in the basement. And the reason that it feels great is because you have visually thrown them away without any of the hemming and hawing of actually deciding whether you want to own them and what to do with them. Easy solutions hide hard work. If you lose your keys often, a tiled keychain might help you, but you have to spend $30 and remember to attach it and download an app and update that app whenever it bugs you to, and remember your login credentials and replace its battery whenever it expires, which might be 1 year or it might be 3 years. And also sometimes they're not replaceable at all and you just have to throw it in a landfill. Seamless products still require work. They're just better at hiding it. Did you hear my wrist click? Did the mic catch that? Falling apart! Avoidance strategy number 2. Insulate yourself from unwanted communications. This is me at my most. Old man yells at cloud. If someone wants your attention, they should have to work hard to get it. I think that a phone exists so that you can be reached by your friends, your family, and the people who are willing to put in the hard work of tracking you down because they have something important to say to you. Instead, everyone in the world has access to everyone in the world via text and email all of the time. The retailer that you bought leggings from once has been sending you coupons every 9 minutes since 2014. Each and every one is one more thing that you have to read and process and evaluate. Where does this go? Should this go into my to-do list? Into the trash? You have to choose. Oh, because you can't just not participate, because hidden in amongst all of these useless communications, there is one invitation to your friend's baby shower. Filtering through unwanted communications is kind of like panning for gold. It is very mind-numbing work, and the cost of making a mistake is quite high. So the less you have to filter, the better. Unsubscribe from everything. Don't give anyone your real email address or phone number if you can help it. There are tons of ways to avoid doing it. We have a whole article on this subject, and I will put that right here. Avoidance strategy number 3, don't be too helpful. There's a proverb that goes, if you want a task done, give it to a busy person. And I fucking hate this proverb because it's so damn accurate. In my first corporate job, our team had 2 copywriters. Larry worked very slowly, and Cindy worked very quickly. It did not take long for clients to figure out that work sent to Larry took 3 times as long to come back, so they stopped asking Larry to do anything. Cindy was working late, racing to finish an unhinged number of projects, while Larry kicked off at 3 p.m. most days. I really wish this was not true, but in our culture, the reward for doing work quickly and well is usually more work. You are the only person who can protect yourself from landing in Cindy's situation. Don't be too available. Don't raise your hand and volunteer first unless it's something you actually want to do. Never work at your top speed. Take a full day to respond to emails. Take half a day to respond to texts. Not to be difficult, but to protect yourself and to discourage unnecessary requests on your time. If people know they have to wait for an answer, they're more likely to figure it out on their own. And you were not put on this planet to Google things for other people. Avoidance strategy number 4, cross-train the people around you. As that story about Larry and Cindy highlights, the division of labor in workplaces is often very unfair. And that is true in families and households too. It's perfectly normal for partners within teams, families, and couples to develop specializations. I cook dinner, you wash dishes. But sometimes a group becomes so reliant on one person that they are incapable of functioning without them. That person is constantly getting drained, derailed, and pestered with variations of the "where does this go?" question, because they are the only one who knows. As much as possible, you do not want to get yourself in this situation. The solution is to cross-train. Teach the people around you how to do the things that you do. Training other people is admittedly quite frustrating because at first it actually takes more of your time and energy, but you have to keep at it because delegation is an absolutely essential skill within every kind of equitable partnership. Avoidance strategy number 5, streamline your systems. God, these are really corporate. Sorry. Streamline your systems. I'm a hack. I'm sorry, everyone. So before I retired, I was a graphic designer supporting a large pool of clients. We had a weird hodgepodge of ways that they might ask me for help. Many of them emailed me. A few swung by my desk and asked me in person. Some would wait to ask it in one of our regular standing meetings. Some pinged me directly via our office's instant messenger system. Others reached out via Teams direct message or tagged me in a project-based Teams portal. There were 3 people only who texted my personal phone, and they were all in sales. Some opened a ticket in an intake tool, which required this cumbersome authentication app that only worked when I was physically present in the office. And others opened a ticket in a completely different intake tool because corporate's gonna corporate. Can you imagine how hard it was to keep track of all of this shit? Given this, is it any fucking wonder that I started dropping the ball? The task could be as simple as fix a single typo, but my time and energy were being eaten up answering questions like, where does this request go? Where do these changes go? Where's the attachment that I need? Where does this shit go? Something had to change. I decided in my inbox was the only acceptable answer. I logged out of our company's instant messenger system permanently. I deleted Teams. I stopped responding to text, and I deflected all in-person requests. There was initially a little bit of friction, but after a month or 2 of sticking to those boundaries, I was able to get the exact same amount of work done without feeling nearly so drained and without making sloppy mistakes or missing important details. And it paved the way for a lot of other people on my team to recognize that that was working and to make similar accommodations. Everyone's jobs are different. I cannot give you a personalized roadmap to how to adapt these principles, but I will observe that in my experience, inattentive mistakes are way more likely to happen to employees who are being asked to do too many tasks by too many different people with inconsistent feedback and not enough support or grace. If your workplace does not enable you to be successful, you should advocate for a system that works for you. Good bosses will not argue with your methods if the results speak for themselves. Bad bosses will argue with you because they're bad leaders who don't understand that their core job function is to enable their team. And they think that their 6 Sigma certification gives them the power to squeeze blood from stones. Convincing them to give you this kind of autonomy is possible, but we're going to have to save it for another day. Despite a few notable exceptions, I think the world is a much easier place for a naturally organized person. Staying on top of commitments and responsibilities can help you be a better friend, a better roommate, coworker, student, lover, parent, pet owner, car owner. I'd love to be the person who shows up on time and remembers birthdays. I'm improving, but I'm always going to be a work in progress. Often the obligatory administrative aspects of modern life feel overwhelming. Doing the right thing doesn't always bring the rewards that it should. Sometimes extra effort is worth it, and sometimes you just have to say fuck it. There are times that drive a grown woman to eat Parmesan goldfish in bed, god damn it. Oh, Jess and I are definitely living through one of those times right now. The quest for financial freedom brings many great things: physical security, material comfort, vocational attainment, peace of mind, community support, but it also brings the ability to cave to your baser desires for solitude, for ease, for pleasure. We live in a very disorganized world, and sometimes disorganization feels like the correct emotional response. I worked hard all day, and I'm tired. Fuck it, we're ordering takeout. My job would be completely lost without my expertise, so fuck it, I'm calling in sick today. My parents keep steamrolling over all of my boundaries, so fuck it, we are leaving to stay in a hotel. I have lived with this asshole for long enough. Fuck it, I'm breaking my lease. There is a season for everything, a time to reap and a time to sow, and sometimes it is the season to gob out, and when you do, make it count. Thank you to our Patreon donors for choosing today's topic. I really love you guys, and I love the ways in which you influence what we choose to talk about. In particular, I want to thank the patron who originally inspired this with their very heart-wrenching story about the struggles they were going through, and it made me want to talk about my own sort of faltering, failure-filled journey to becoming an organized person. You know who you are. I hope that today's talk was helpful to you. I really appreciate you, and I'm rooting for you, as I'm rooting for all of you and for myself. Oh yeah, guys, we're coming back soon with some topical stuff. That's right, it's just normal stuff. Stuff that isn't depressing and upsetting and terrifying. Don't worry about it. Unrelated, we do need quite a lot of Parmesan goldfish to eat in our beds. So if you'd like to contribute to our Parmesan goldfish fund, you can do that at patreon.com/bitchesgetriches. Are you excited? Because I'm not. That's all for now. Bitches out. I feel like I'm blowing the mind of high people right now. Hey man, did you ever think about, like, if you know where everything goes, then you know where everything is? Bruh, that's so deep, bruh. Bruh!